The evening air was cool, and the streets were busy with people rushing home after work. In the middle of all that noise, a tired cleaner walked slowly with his worn shoes tapping against the pavement. His clothes smelled faintly of detergent, and his hands were rough from hours of scrubbing floors and carrying heavy buckets. He had just finished a long shift at the bus station, and all he wanted was to get home, rest his back, and eat a simple meal. As he turned a corner, his eyes caught sight of something that made him stop. An old lady stood near the side of the road, clutching 2 heavy bags of groceries. The bags seemed far too heavy for her frail arms. Her steps were shaky, and her face showed clear signs of struggle. People walked by, glancing at her for a moment, but then quickly looking away, too busy with their own lives to notice her difficulty. Some even frowned, as if her slowness was an inconvenience to them. The cleaner stood there for a moment. He was exhausted, his legs aching from hours of work, and a small voice inside him told him to just keep walking. After all, no one else seemed to care. But another thought grew stronger in his heart. What if she fell? What if she had no one to help her? He knew that feeling all too well, the feeling of being invisible and ignored by others. Without thinking any further, he walked over to her. "Excuse me," he said softly, trying not to frighten her. "Do you need help with those bags?" The old lady looked up at him, her eyes tired but kind. For a second, she seemed surprised that someone had stopped. Then she gave a small nod. "They are a little heavy," she admitted with a faint smile. The cleaner gently took the bags from her hands. They were heavier than they looked, filled with vegetables, rice, and other goods. He wondered how she had even managed to carry them this far. "I'll carry them for you," he said. "Where are you going?" She told him her address, a small apartment a few blocks away. As they walked, she glanced at him a few times, noticing the sweat on his forehead and the tired slump of his shoulders. "You must be coming from work," she said kindly. He nodded. "Yes, I clean at the bus station. Long hours, but it's honest work." He smiled faintly, though his eyes showed his fatigue. "But I don't mind helping. Helping someone doesn't cost anything." The old lady's smile grew warmer at his words. Not many people spoke that way anymore, she thought. Most rushed through life, always looking for something in return. But this man, though poor and worn, had stopped when no one else had. They continued walking slowly through the streets. The cleaner didn't complain, even though the bags pulled at his arms. He asked her gentle questions to keep her mind occupied, if she lived alone, if she liked cooking, and if she often came shopping by herself. She answered softly, telling him bits and pieces of her life, though she avoided certain details. She said she liked simple meals, that she enjoyed sitting by the window to watch the world outside, and that she often felt the weight of silence in her home. By the time they reached her building, the cleaner's shirt was damp with sweat, but he still wore a kind expression. He set the bags carefully on the kitchen table after she invited him inside. The apartment was modest, though something about it felt strangely calm. She asked him to sit for a while, insisting that he rest and have a cup of tea. At first he hesitated. He didn't want to impose, and he still had to walk home. But the warmth in her voice made him stay. As she prepared the tea, she looked at him closely. He had the face of a man who had worked hard all his life, but never complained. His hands were cracked, his shoes nearly torn, yet his words carried no bitterness. She asked him if he had family, and he told her he sent what little money he earned to support them. Sometimes, he said, he skipped meals just to save enough. Still, he didn't sound sad. He simply shrugged and said, "Life is difficult, but it's not impossible when you keep faith." The old lady placed a warm cup of tea in front of him. He thanked her with genuine gratitude, sipping slowly. For a moment, they sat in silence. It was a simple scene, an old woman and a poor cleaner sharing tea after an unexpected encounter. But in that quiet room, something meaningful had begun. The cleaner stood up soon after, not wanting to overstay. He carried the last of her bags into the kitchen, gave her a polite nod, and said he should leave before it got too late. She looked at him, her eyes holding something unspoken, but she only said, "Thank you, young man. Not everyone would stop the way you did." He smiled again, a small tired smile, and replied, "Anyone should. You just needed help. That's all." Then he stepped out into the night, walking back into the crowd of strangers, unaware that his simple kindness had left a mark deeper than he could imagine as the door closed behind him. The old lady sat quietly, staring at the bags on the table. Her lips curved into a thoughtful smile. She had met many people in her life, some who chased after her wealth, some who showed kindness only when they saw what she had. But this man, this poor cleaner, had helped her without knowing or expecting anything. And for the first time in a long while, she felt hope stirring in her heart. The next morning came quietly, the sun rising over the city with its usual noise of buses, bicycles, and hurried footsteps. The cleaner woke up early, as he always did. His small room had little more than a bed, a chair, and a tiny shelf with a few worn-out books. He stretched his arms, feeling the stiffness in his muscles from yesterday's long shift. His shoes, scuffed and old, waited by the door. He tied them carefully, as if even these battered shoes deserved respect. As he stepped outside, the air was still cool. His walk to work was long, but he had grown used to it. Along the way, he bought a small piece of bread from a street vendor, eating slowly, making every bite last. His thoughts drifted back to the old lady he had helped the day before. For some reason, her face stayed in his mind. She had looked so frail, yet there was a quiet strength in her eyes. He wondered if she had managed to put all those groceries away. At the bus station, the day began as usual. People left wrappers and bottles on benches. The floor grew dirty with every passing hour, and he worked steadily with his broom and mop. He didn't complain. This was his life, and he was grateful that he at least had work to do. Still, somewhere in the back of his mind, the memory of the old woman lingered. Late in the afternoon, when he finally finished his shift, he sat on the station steps to rest for a moment. His back ached, and his hands were sore. He rubbed his palms together and looked at the passing crowd. Then, as if by chance, he saw a familiar figure walking slowly along the street nearby. It was her, the old lady. She was carrying only a small bag this time, but she seemed to struggle with even that. Without hesitation, he stood up and walked toward her. "Good evening," he greeted her with a smile. "Out shopping again?" The old lady looked up, and her face brightened when she recognized him. "Ah, it's you again," she said warmly. "Yes, just a few things today. I wasn't expecting to see you." He chuckled softly. The city is big, but sometimes paths cross again. He reached for her bag. "Let me carry this for you." She didn't argue. She handed him the bag, and they walked together once more. This time, their steps felt more comfortable, as if they were no longer strangers. She asked him about his day, and he told her little stories about the people at the bus station, the man who always dropped coffee on the floor, the little boy who laughed while chasing pigeons, the vendors shouting to sell their snacks. He spoke simply, but with a warmth that made even ordinary moments sound alive. As they reached her apartment, she invited him in again. "You must be tired," she said gently. "Sit down for a while. Let me give you some tea and food. Yesterday, you barely ate anything." He hesitated at first, but the smell of fresh bread and warm soup reached his nose, and his empty stomach betrayed him with a soft growl. He gave a shy smile and nodded. "Thank you. Just a little will be fine." Inside, the apartment was the same as before, quiet, neat, with a sense of peace. He placed her bag on the table and sat on the edge of the chair politely, as if afraid of taking up too much space. The old lady brought him a bowl of soup and some bread. He ate slowly, savoring every bite, while she sat across from him, watching with kind eyes. "You work very hard," she said after a while. "Don't you ever wish for something easier?" He paused for a moment, thinking carefully. "Of course," he admitted. "But I've learned that life doesn't always give you what you wish for. Sometimes you just have to keep going with what you have. Complaining won't clean the floors, right?" He laughed softly, trying to make light of it, but she didn't laugh. She looked at him deeply, as if trying to understand every word. "And yet, you still stop to help strangers," she said quietly. "Even when you are tired, even when you have nothing to gain." He shrugged modestly. "If someone needs help, and I can do something, why not? I don't like seeing people struggle. I know how it feels." Her eyes grew moist, though she quickly looked away so he wouldn't notice. In that moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: genuine trust. So many people around her had always wanted something. But this man, this cleaner with little to his name, had given his time and strength freely. They sat for a while longer, talking about small things. She told him she once loved gardening, though now her body was too weak to care for plants. He told her he once dreamed of becoming a teacher, but life had forced him to leave school early to earn money. Their stories were simple, yet they carried weight, filling the quiet apartment with a warmth that neither of them had expected. When he finally stood to leave, she walked him to the door. "Thank you again," she said softly. "Not just for carrying my things, but for your company. It means more than you know." He smiled, bowing his head slightly. "It was nothing. Just being kind. That's all." And with that, he stepped out into the fading evening light. The old lady closed the door behind him, but her heart was restless. She sat by the window, staring out at the street long after he was gone. Something about him stayed with her: his honesty, his quiet strength, his refusal to let hardship make him bitter. She whispered to herself, "There is more to this man than meets the eye." And though the cleaner thought little of it, believing he had simply done what was right, he had unknowingly left a deeper impression on her than he could ever imagine. The following day began like any other. The cleaner woke up before the sun, washed his face in the cold water from a small tap, and headed to work. The streets were already filling with people hurrying in every direction. Life felt ordinary, the same endless cycle of sweeping, scrubbing, and carrying heavy loads at the bus station. Yet somewhere in the back of his mind, he kept thinking about the old lady. Her soft smile, her kind words, the warmth of the tea she had offered him, all of it lingered, though he pushed the thoughts aside. For him, kindness was something given without expecting anything in return. The day moved slowly. By late afternoon, the cleaner leaned on his broom, catching his breath. His body was tired, but his spirit was calm. That's when something unusual caught his attention. The sound of an expensive car engine roared nearby, breaking through the usual noise of buses and street vendors. People turned their heads. A black luxury car, sleek and polished, rolled to a stop right outside the bus station. The cleaner paused, frowning. Cars like that never stopped here. This was not the kind of place where wealthy people visited. Curious onlookers gathered as the back door opened, and a tall man in a suit stepped out. His shoes shone, and his manner was formal. He looked around, scanning the crowd. Then his eyes landed on the cleaner. "You there," the man said firmly, though not unkindly. "Are you the one we're looking for?" The cleaner blinked, startled. He pointed at himself, unsure. "Me?" "Yes, please come with us." The suited man gestured toward the car. Another man opened the door, waiting for him to enter. The cleaner's heart began to race. His first thought was fear. Had something gone wrong? Did he make a mistake at work? Why would people like this want him? He looked around, embarrassed by the curious stares of strangers. People were whispering, some even laughing. What would a poor cleaner have to do with rich people? Someone muttered, I think you have the wrong person," the cleaner stammered, but the suited man shook his head. "No, we were sent for you. Please don't be afraid. Just come with us. It will all be explained." The cleaner hesitated. His instincts told him to run, to avoid trouble. Yet there was something in the man's voice, a politeness, a calm assurance that eased his fear just a little. Slowly he stepped closer. His hands trembled as he slid into the back seat of the luxury car. The smell of leather filled his nose, and the soft seat felt unreal beneath him. He had never sat in a car like this before. The door shut, and the car began to move. Through the tinted windows, he saw the bus station fade behind him. His chest tightened with uncertainty. "Where are you taking me?" he finally asked. The man sitting in the front seat glanced back. "You'll see soon enough. Do not worry. You're safe." The ride felt endless. Streets passed, then tall buildings, then quieter neighborhoods. Finally, the car slowed as they approached a large gate. It opened automatically, and the cleaner's mouth fell open in shock. Behind the gates was a mansion taller, grander, and more beautiful than anything he had ever seen. The garden stretched wide, with fountains and statues gleaming in the afternoon sun. He couldn't believe his eyes. The car stopped, and the man in the suit opened the door for him. "This way, please." The cleaner stepped out, his legs shaking slightly. His heart pounded as he followed the men up the marble steps. The massive doors opened, and he entered a hall lined with chandeliers and golden frames. He looked around, overwhelmed. Every detail screamed of wealth and power, and then he saw her. Sitting calmly in an armchair in the grand living room was the same old lady, the woman he had helped with her groceries, the one who had offered him tea in a modest apartment. Only now she looked different. She was dressed elegantly, her hair neatly done, and a quiet authority surrounded her. She smiled as she saw his shocked expression. "You came," she said softly, her voice calm yet warm. The cleaner froze in place. His mind struggled to make sense of what he was seeing. You live here?" he asked, his voice trembling. The old lady nodded gently. "Yes, this is my home." He shook his head in disbelief. "But how?" "Yesterday. You were in that small apartment. You carried bags yourself." "I don't understand." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes kind but serious. "There are many things you don't know yet. But one thing is certain: your kindness was real. And that is why you are here." The cleaner swallowed hard, confusion flooding his thoughts. He had no idea what was happening or why this woman, who clearly had everything, would go to such lengths for someone like him. But deep inside, he sensed that something important was about to be revealed, something that would change his life forever. Asterisk. The cleaner stood frozen in the middle of the grand room, his eyes darting from the golden frames on the wall to the shining chandelier above his head. Every corner of the mansion glowed with wealth, a kind of wealth he had only ever seen from a distance, never this close. His hands shook slightly, and he rubbed them against his worn trousers as if to ground himself. He looked again at the old lady seated calmly before him, her posture graceful, her expression gentle. "You must have many questions," she said, her voice steady yet warm. The cleaner nodded slowly, unable to find the right words. I don't understand," he whispered. "Why am I here? Why did you send for me? And you are not the same person I saw yesterday. That apartment, those bags." His voice trailed off, tangled in disbelief. The old lady smiled faintly. "I am the same person, but perhaps not the one you thought I was." She gestured to the chair opposite her. "Please sit. You deserve to hear the truth." Hesitantly, the cleaner lowered himself into the soft chair. It felt so strange he, a man who barely earned enough to eat, now sitting in the mansion of someone who looked like she owned half the world. She folded her hands neatly in her lap. "What you don't know," she began, "is that I am not just an old woman with heavy bags. I am one of the wealthiest people in this city. Some would say I am among the richest women in the country. I own businesses, land, and properties. But I don't reveal that to just anyone. Most see me as an opportunity, a path to gain something for themselves. The cleaner's eyes widened. The words, richest women, echoed in his ears, but he still found it hard to believe. To him, she had seemed so ordinary, so simple. But why would someone like you walk alone with groceries? Why would you let me help you? Her eyes softened, and a sadness passed over her face. Because I wanted to know something. I wanted to see if there were still people in this world who help without expectation. Do you know how many people pass me by when I walk on the street dressed plainly? Almost everyone. To them, I am just an old burden in the way. But you stopped. You carried my bags. You didn't ask for money. You didn't treat me like an inconvenience. You treated me like a human being. That is rare, and it meant more to me than you realize. The cleaner swallowed hard, still struggling to process everything. He had never thought his small act of kindness could mean so much. To him, it had been simple, natural, something anyone should do. She leaned forward slightly. I watched you yesterday. I listened to your words. You spoke of your struggles with honesty, not bitterness. You smiled even when talking about your hardships. You said, helping someone costs nothing. Do you remember? He nodded slowly, his voice quiet. Yes. I said that. Her smile deepened. Those words stayed with me all night. In a world where people chase money, power, and comfort, you reminded me of what truly matters. That is why I asked you here. Because your kindness deserves to be seen. The cleaner lowered his gaze, his chest tight with emotion. He felt small in that grand room, yet at the same time, he felt strangely respected. He shook his head in disbelief. I am just a poor man, he said softly. I have nothing. I don't belong in a place like this. The old lady's eyes glimmered with something between wisdom and compassion. You are wrong, she said gently. What you have is priceless. Honesty, humility, and kindness. Those qualities are worth more than all the money in the world. And that is why I want to help you. The cleaner's head snapped up, his heart racing. Help me? She nodded. Yes, you have spent your life working hard, yet life has not been fair to you. I cannot change your past, but I can change your future. You will no longer struggle as you have. I want to give you a chance to live with dignity, to support your family without breaking your back, to finally rest without fear of tomorrow. His breath caught in his throat. The thought seemed too big, too impossible. People like him didn't get chances like that. His eyes grew moist, and he quickly wiped at them, embarrassed. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say nothing now, she replied kindly. Just know that your kindness has not gone unnoticed. You opened a door you never knew existed, and I intend to walk you through it. Silence filled the room for a moment, heavy yet full of meaning. The cleaner sat trembling, overwhelmed by the weight of her words. He could hardly believe that helping an old lady with groceries had brought him here. To this moment, on the edge of a life he had never dared to dream of, the old lady stood slowly, walking toward him with surprising grace. She rested a gentle hand on his shoulder. Sometimes, she said softly, a simple act of kindness is the most powerful key of all. Her words sank deep into his heart. He realized then that what he thought was just a small act had opened the door to something extraordinary, something that would change, not just his life, but perhaps the lives of everyone he loved. The cleaner sat in stunned silence, her hand still resting gently on his shoulder. He could hear the ticking of a large clock somewhere in the mansion, each sound reminding him this moment was real, not a dream. His heart raced as he tried to understand what had just been offered to him. He had lived his whole life in struggle, never once imagining that kindness could open such a door. The old lady smiled, reading the disbelief on his face. "Come," she said softly. "Let me show you something." She led him down a long hallway, her steps slow but steady. The walls were lined with portraits and photographs, images of her younger days, of grand gatherings, and of moments that showed the weight of history. Finally, they stopped in front of a door. She opened it, and he found himself looking into a large study filled with books and a wide desk. On the desk lay stacks of papers, folders, and what looked like employment documents. She gestured toward them. "I want you to work with me. Not as a servant, not as someone beneath me, but as part of my company. You have proven you have something more valuable than skill or wealth. You have integrity. That is something I cannot buy, but it is something my world desperately needs." His eyes widened. "Work with you? But I am only a cleaner. I don't know how to do business. I don't understand these things." She chuckled softly. "Do you think I was born knowing? No, my boy. I learned step by step. What matters is your heart and your honesty. Skills can be taught. Kindness cannot." The words struck him deeply. For so long, he had believed his life would never change, that he would always remain at the bottom, invisible to the world. And now this woman was offering him not only a job, but a chance to step into a new life. He shook his head, tears filling his eyes. "Why me?" he whispered. She looked at him with steady eyes. "Because you helped me when no one else would. Because you saw me not as a burden, but as a person. And because people like you deserve to rise." He could no longer hold back his emotions. Tears slid down his face as he pressed his hands together in gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "Don't thank me," she replied gently. "Live your life with the same kindness you showed me. That will be thanks enough." Days turned into weeks, and true to her word, the old lady brought him into her company. At first, everything was overwhelming: the tall buildings, the busy offices, the endless flow of papers and meetings. He felt out of place, dressed in his simple clothes among men in polished suits. But she stood by him, guiding him patiently, introducing him not as a charity case, but as someone she trusted deeply. Slowly, he began to learn. His humble nature made people respect him, and his honesty earned him trust in places where deception was common. He discovered talents he didn't know he had: the ability to listen carefully, to understand people, and to make fair decisions. The same qualities that made him a good man on the streets made him a good man in the company. Outside of work, his life transformed. He was able to move into a small but comfortable home. He no longer worried about skipping meals or wearing shoes with holes. He sent money to his family, enough for them to live without hunger. For the first time, he saw his mother smile without worry. His younger siblings were able to attend school, something he had always dreamed for them. Yet through all of this, he never changed who he was. He still greeted strangers with kindness. He still gave food to the hungry whenever he could. He still remembered the long nights of cleaning floors and the loneliness of walking home tired and unseen. Success did not harden his heart. It only made it softer. One evening, as he sat in his new home, he thought back to that single moment, the night he saw the old woman struggling with her bags. He realized how easily he could have walked past her, just like everyone else. How easily he could have told himself he was too tired, too poor, too busy. But he hadn't, and that one choice had changed everything. Sometimes he whispered to himself, the smallest act of kindness could open the biggest door. The old lady visited him often, still dressed in simple clothes when she went out into the world. She never forgot his words, helping someone costs nothing. And he never forgot hers, kindness cannot be bought. Together, they shared a bond that went beyond wealth and status, a bond built on humanity. In the end, his life was not defined by the riches he gained, but by the kindness he gave. He remained humble, living proof that goodness, even in the smallest form, could lead to miracles. And as he looked at his family, now safe and cared for, he thought quietly to himself, helping her was the best decision of my life.